All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about one of the most powerful and yet kind of invisible forces in your life. I'm talking about the state. It tells you where you can live, how fast you can drive, what you owe in taxes. But what exactly is this thing? And why do we give it so much power over us? Let's find out.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Every single day, you follow laws and regulations that were created by people you will probably never meet in your entire life. Why? It seems like a simple question, but the answer is incredibly complex, and it gets right to the very heart of what the state is all about.
So, to really understand the state, we have to look at it as one of humanity's biggest inventions. And we can do that by asking three really big questions. Questions that philosophers and thinkers have been wrestling with for centuries.
First off, what is a state, really? We throw that word around all the time, but what are the essential ingredients? What separates a state from, say, a giant corporation or a club?
Second question, where did this thing even come from? I mean, states haven't always been around, so how did they get started? Was it through war and conquest, divine will, or something else entirely?
And finally, this is the big one. By what right does it command us? What gives the state its authority to tell us what to do? This is all about legitimacy, and honestly, it's the foundation of all politics.
Okay, so let's tackle that first question. Political scientists pretty much agree that for something to be called a state, it needs these four things. You got to have a population, that's people. You need territory, land with borders. You need a government to make and enforce the rules. And the crucial one, you need sovereignty. That just means it has the supreme, absolute power within its own borders. It doesn't answer to anyone higher.
Now for that second question, where did this incredibly powerful entity come from? Well, there's no single, easy answer. Instead, what we have are four major theories, basically four competing origin stories that have really shaped how we think about government.
All right, on one side, you've got two of the oldest, most primal ideas out there. The force theory is brutally simple. The state was born when one person or group conquered another. The strongest ones made the rules, and that was that. It's literally might makes right. Then you have the divine right theory, which claims a much higher authority. God. The idea here is that the state is a divine creation and the king or queen rules because God chose them. So, to challenge the ruler, that's like challenging God himself.
Then there's an idea that's a little less dramatic, but maybe more intuitive, the evolutionary theory. This one suggests the state wasn't just some big event, but a slow, gradual process. It argues that government just evolved. It grew organically, starting with the family, which grew into a clan, then a tribe. And as societies got bigger and more complex, the state just naturally emerged to manage everything.
But the idea that truly turned everything on its head, the one that really shaped our modern world, is the social contract theory. This was a complete game changer. It said the state isn't a product of force or God or some slow evolution. No, it's an invention, a voluntary agreement made by the people for the people.
And this brings us right back to our third and most important question. By what right does the state command us? Well, the social contract folks said the answer is simple. By our own consent. We choose to be governed. But, and this is a big but, they argued like crazy over why we would ever make that choice in the first place.
This is where the debate gets absolutely fascinating. You've got these three major thinkers, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, who all start with the same basic idea of a social contract, but they end up in wildly different places. And why? Because it all came down to their view of human nature. You had Hobbes, the pessimist, who thought we need an absolute ruler to save us from our own violent selves. Then you had Locke, the optimist, who said government's only job is to protect the natural rights we're all born with. And then there's Rousseau, who was all about the general will, the idea that the state should reflect what's best for the community as a whole.
And this quote from Hobbes, man, it's one of the most famous in all of political philosophy. It's so powerful. He paints this absolutely terrifying picture of a world without rules, what he called the state of nature, to explain why we would willingly give up all our freedom to an all-powerful ruler. For Hobbes, the alternative was just too horrible to even think about.
So why does any of this old history matter to us today? Because these theories aren't just for history class. They're the actual blueprints for how we organize our societies. And the debate is still going on, with modern theories offering very different ideas about what the state is really for.
So for example, take a look at these two competing modern views. Marxist theory says all that talk about social contracts is just a nice story. In reality, the state is just a tool used by the rich and powerful to protect their stuff and keep everyone else in line. But then, in complete contrast, you have the pluralist theory, which sees the modern democratic state as something totally different, a neutral referee. And this chart really shows that pluralist idea perfectly. In this view, power isn't in the hands of one single group. No way. It's spread out among thousands of different competing interest groups. You've got corporations, unions, activists, the media, all pulling in different directions. And the state's job? It's to sit in the middle, listen to everybody, and act as an arbiter to find compromises for the public good.
So here's the crucial thing to take away. Our answer to the question, what is the state for, isn't just an academic one. Whether we see it as a tool of God, a necessary evil to keep us safe, a protector of our rights, or a tool of the powerful, whatever we believe, that becomes the blueprint for the world we actually build. These ideas have very, very real consequences.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. We started by defining the state with its 4 key ingredients: people, land, rules, and power. We walked through its origin stories, from the brutality of force to the revolutionary idea of a social contract. We saw how a government's entire legitimacy, its right to rule, comes down to why we agree to obey it. And we've seen how these big philosophical debates aren't just history, they are the very foundations of the world we live in right now.
At the end of the day, these theories aren't just about the past. They're part of a living, breathing, ongoing debate about power, freedom, and justice. The story of the state isn't over. It's constantly evolving. And as citizens, we're all the authors of its next chapter. So the real question is, what's your chapter going to say?